The storm had been building for hours over El Paso, heavy and electric, shaking the windows of the Blue Room, a dim-lit roadside bar where truckers, lost souls, and men with too many secrets came to drown what couldn't be forgotten. The air was thick with heat and whiskey breath, the hum of a jukebox playing an old Springsteen song barely audible beneath the low murmurs and clinking glasses. Behind the counter, Claire Donovan wiped the same glass over and over, lost in the rhythm of it. Her blonde hair was tied messily at the nape of her neck, a few loose strands sticking to her damp skin. She'd been working doubles for weeks, ever since her brother disappeared somewhere near the border. No one talked about it anymore, but she still waited for a call, a clue, something. At 9:47 p.m., the door opened, and the sound of rain and thunder rolled in with him. Marco Reyes. Everyone in the bar went silent the second he stepped in. Tall, olive-skinned, eyes dark as storm clouds, the kind of presence that seemed to alter gravity. He wore a dark suit, soaked at the shoulders, and carried a faint scar down the left side of his jaw. Men like Marco didn't walk into small-town bars unless they were looking for someone, or something. Claire's breath caught. She didn't know him, but she felt him, that strange, magnetic tension that made the air thinner. He didn't sit at a table. He went straight to the bar, hand steady, voice smooth. Whiskey. Neat. She nodded, poured. His fingers brushed hers when he took the glass, and for a fraction of a second, her pulse stuttered. The regulars stared, whispering. They knew who he was, or at least who people said he was. The cartel boss who'd taken control of half of West Texas. The man whose name you didn't say too loud. Marco drank without a word, eyes never leaving Claire. "You're not from here," she said quietly. He tilted his head, amused. "No. And you?" "Born and raised," she said. "Not much to do but pour drinks and pretend it's enough." His lips curved, but there was something haunted behind it. "Pretending," he said softly, "is how most people survive." Outside, lightning flashed. For a second, the room turned white, and when the thunder broke, the door slammed open again. Two men in leather jackets stumbled in, rain dripping from their clothes. Their eyes scanned the bar until they found Marco. The tension thickened like smoke. Claire froze. She could feel it, something dark about to happen. "Boss," one of them said, voice shaking. "We found him." Marco didn't turn. "Where?" "Out by the yard. He had something." The other man hesitated, glancing at Claire. Marco noticed. His voice dropped, deadly calm. "What did he have?" The man's throat worked. He had her brother's necklace. Claire's heart stopped. Marco's gaze finally broke from her. He turned to his men. "Bring it here." One of them reached into his jacket, pulled out a small silver chain, with a faded dog tag attached. Her brother's. The room spun. Claire gripped the counter, eyes wide. "Where did you?" "Stay back," Marco warned. But she didn't. She came around the bar, snatched the chain from the man's hand, trembling. The tag was scratched but still legible. Liam Donovan. Her brother's name. Her brother's chain. Marco's men looked uneasy. The air felt electric again, thunder rumbling closer. Marco studied her face, her tears, her shaking hands. Something in his expression softened for the first time. "You knew him." She looked up sharply. "He's my brother." Silence fell. Then the front door opened again, not with thunder this time, but with a gust of fear. A man limped in, covered in mud, his shirt torn, his eyes desperate. The entire bar turned. "Marco!" he shouted, voice hoarse. "They're coming. They found the shipment." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Claire holding the chain. Recognition flashed in his eyes. And then panic. Marco moved fast, grabbing the man by the collar. "Who gave you this necklace?" "I." The man's breath came ragged. "I didn't take it. I swear." She was there." Claire blinked. "She." Marco turned to her, eyes narrowing. "Who's she?" The man's voice cracked. "The girl with the scar, the one who was with Liam the night he—" Before he could finish, a deafening crack split the air. A gunshot. The mirror behind the bar shattered. Screams erupted. Claire dropped to the floor, her ears ringing. Someone had fired from outside. A sniper, judging by the echo. Marco pulled her down, covering her body with his breath hot against her neck. "Stay down," he murmured. Another shot closer. The lights flickered. Bottles shattered. Then silence. The door creaked open again. A figure stepped inside through the smoke, a woman in a black raincoat, her face shadowed beneath the hood. In her hand was a pistol, slick with rain. Her voice was cold, calm. "Let her go, Marco." Claire looked up from the floor. The woman lowered the hood. Claire gasped, because beneath the dripping hair, beneath the hard eyes, she saw something she couldn't understand. It was her own face. Not exactly, older, sharper, but unmistakably hers. Same eyes. Same scar above the lip she'd gotten as a kid. The bar went still. Marco didn't move. His expression was unreadable, but his hand tightened around Claire's wrist. The woman stepped closer, lowering the gun slightly. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "Not yet." Claire's heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Who are you?" The woman smiled faintly, a sad, broken smile. "I'm the one who tried to save him." Lightning struck again, flooding the room in white. When the light faded, the woman was gone. The door swung open in the wind, rain pouring through. Claire stood frozen, the chain trembling in her hand, Marco's breath heavy behind her. He looked at her, eyes dark with something she couldn't name. "You need to tell me everything you know about your brother." Claire swallowed hard. "I don't know anything." Marco stepped closer, his voice low. "Then we'll find out together." She looked up at him, chest tight, heartbeat wild. "Why do I feel like I've met you before?" He didn't answer. He just looked at her, as thunder roared above and the storm swallowed the night, with the kind of gaze that held both danger and something far more fragile, recognition. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. It wasn't just her brother who'd vanished into Marco's world. It was her past. Morning came reluctantly over El Paso, gray light spilling through clouds swollen with leftover rain. The storm had passed, but the air still carried the electricity of what had happened inside the Blue Room. The bar sat quiet now. Broken glass swept into corners, the smell of whiskey and gunpowder lingering in the walls. Claire hadn't slept. She sat in the back office, her brother's chain wrapped tight around her fingers, her mind replaying the woman's face over and over. The same eyes, the same scar, the impossible familiarity that gnawed at her like a fever dream. Marco stood by the window, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled, watching the empty parking lot. Dawn light cut across his jaw, catching the thin scar there, a mark that, like everything about him, hinted at a story no one dared to ask. "You should rest," he said without turning. Claire laughed softly, bitterly. "You think I can sleep after last night?" His silence stretched. She leaned back, exhausted. "Who was she, Marco? You knew her." He finally looked at her, not with the cold detachment he'd shown before, but with something cautious. "I didn't know her," he said slowly, "but I've heard whispers. People say she's been hunting what's left of my world for years, smuggling names, burning records, finding ghosts that should stay buried." Claire frowned. "And she looks exactly like me." "That," he said quietly, "is what scares me." The door creaked. One of Marco's men stepped in, the same one who'd brought the necklace the night before. "Boss," he said, nodding briefly at Claire. "They found the truck. It's abandoned out near the Franklin Mountains. No cargo. No bodies." Marco's expression hardened. "And the woman?" "Gone. Like smoke." Claire stood. "I'm coming with you." He turned sharply. "No. Marco, that necklace is my brother's. That truck, whatever's in it, it's connected. I'm not staying here while you chase his ghost." The air between them tightened, charged. Marco's eyes searched hers, stubborn, scared, furious. And for a moment, his restraint cracked. "You don't understand what you're asking," he said quietly. "People who go looking for truth in my world don't come back the same." Claire stepped closer, voice trembling but steady. "Neither did my brother." He exhaled slowly, eyes closing as if surrendering to something inevitable. Then he grabbed his keys from the desk. "Fine," he said, "but you follow my lead." The desert outside El Paso was a quiet kind of hell. Endless sand and sunlight that could burn the memory out of you. By the time they reached the abandoned truck, the heat shimmered off the asphalt, like ghosts rising. The trailer doors hung open, empty except for a faint chemical smell and a few drops of dried blood near the latch. Marco crouched, tracing the marks on the ground. 2 sets of prints, he murmured. One dragging, one walking. Claire knelt beside him, noticing something half buried in the sand. She dug it out, a torn piece of fabric, dark red. Her throat tightened. This was Liam's hoodie. Marco's eyes flicked to her, then to the horizon. Then she was here. Who? The woman, he said. The one who looks like you. Claire shook her head. Why would she have my brother's things? Why would she? A sharp metallic click cut her off. Don't move. They froze. A voice, low, female, steady, came from behind the truck. Turn around. Slowly. They did. She was there, the woman from the bar, her black raincoat gone, replaced by a faded gray t-shirt and jeans streaked with dirt. Her hair was pulled back tight, and her face, though calmer now, looked almost haunted. Claire's stomach flipped. Seeing her in daylight made it worse. She wasn't just similar, she was identical, down to the smallest detail. Marco stayed still, his hands slightly raised. You shouldn't have come back. The woman's gaze landed on Claire. You brought her, she said. She brought herself, he replied. The woman's jaw tightened. Then to Claire. You need to leave. Now, before he finds you again. Claire took a hesitant step forward. Who? What are you talking about? The woman's eyes softened. That same sadness from last night, deeper now. Liam tried to protect you. That's why he ran. That's why I had to. She stopped herself, shaking her head. You're not supposed to be part of this. Claire's voice broke. You keep saying that like you know me. The woman hesitated, and for the briefest moment, she looked afraid. Because I do. Lightning flickered in the distance, a storm forming again over the desert even though the sun blazed high. Before Claire could ask another question, the sound of engines echoed from the highway. Several black SUVs sped toward them, tires spitting gravel. Marco swore under his breath. They found us. He grabbed Claire's arm, pulling her behind the truck. The woman ran the other way, disappearing into the dust. Bullets cracked through the air seconds later, hitting metal, shattering glass. Who are they? Claire shouted. Marco reloaded his gun. People who think I betrayed them. Maybe I did. The next few moments blurred, gunfire, shouting, the smell of oil and sand. Marco moved with terrifying precision, protecting Claire, leading her toward a low ridge behind the road. They slid down the embankment, out of sight. When the gunfire stopped, the desert went silent again. Only the wind, only the smell of rain that hadn't yet fallen. Claire looked at him, shaken. You said you didn't know her. But you do, don't you? He stared out at the horizon where the woman had vanished. I don't know who she is, he said finally, voice low. But I've seen her before. Her pulse quickened. Where? He looked back at her then, eyes dark, unreadable. In a photo. 10 years ago. Next to Liam. The world tilted. What? She whispered. Marco nodded slowly. Same face. Same scar. But that picture was taken long before you were even born. The desert wind howled between them, carrying the taste of storm and disbelief. Claire felt her knees weaken, her fingers tightening around the chain. Marco, she said, voice barely a breath. What are you saying? He stepped closer, his face inches from hers, eyes fierce but fragile. I'm saying, he murmured, whatever's haunting us, it started long before either of us ever met. That night, they took refuge in a small roadside motel, the kind with flickering neon lights and peeling paint, the kind where stories went to die quietly. Claire sat by the window, staring at the necklace on the nightstand, the reflection of passing headlights sliding across her face. Marco sat on the edge of the bed, cleaning his gun, silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. You think she's connected to my brother's death? I think, he said, she's connected to everything. Claire turned toward him. And what about you, Marco? What are you connected to? He met her gaze, and for the first time, the walls around him cracked. "Regret," he said simply. Something in his tone made her chest tighten. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant but closer than before. As the wind pressed against the thin motel window, Claire realized that no matter how far they ran, someone, was pulling them toward a truth buried deep in the desert. A truth that wore her face. And somewhere out there, in the gathering storm, that face was waiting. The storm returned before dawn, rolling across the desert like an old memory that refused to stay buried. Thunder pressed against the motel walls, making the window panes tremble. Claire woke with a start, heart racing, the faint echo of her brother's voice dissolving in her dream. Rain pattered against the glass, slow, steady, relentless. Marco was gone. His side of the bed was cold, his gun missing from the nightstand. She sat up, pulse climbing. The last 12 hours played in fragments. The ambush in the desert, the woman's face, the revelation that she existed long before Claire was even born. Nothing made sense. Claire threw on her jacket and stepped outside. The parking lot glistened with puddles, neon light from the vacancy, sign flickering red across the wet asphalt. Marco stood under the overhang, cigarette glowing in the dark, his eyes fixed on something beyond the rain. "You shouldn't be out here," he said without looking at her. She crossed her arms. "You left without saying a word." "I needed air." "Or distance?" she asked, stepping closer. "You've been running from something since the moment I met you. What is it, Marco?" He took a long drag, exhaled slowly, and turned toward her. His face looked carved from shadow, sharp, exhausted, human. "You really want to know?" he said softly. "Then come with me." They drove for nearly an hour along Highway 62, past the dark silhouettes of saguaro cacti and distant flashes of lightning splitting the sky. Marco didn't speak until the city lights had vanished entirely behind them. "She's not just a ghost," he said finally. "The woman you saw. The one who looks like you." Claire gripped the seatbelt tighter. "Then who is she?" He glanced at her, eyes reflecting the passing lightning. "A name used to circulate years ago. The Mirror. She worked for a government black project along the border, something to do with identity reconstruction. People say they were experimenting with gene replication, cloning, ghost operatives who could replace others without leaving a trace." Claire laughed under her breath, the sound brittle. "That's insane." "I thought so too," he said quietly, "until I saw the picture." He pulled off the road, stopping beside an abandoned service station. The rain had eased to a drizzle, fog creeping low along the ground. Marco reached into his jacket and handed her a small, worn photograph. Claire held it under the dome light, and her breath caught. It was Liam, her brother, smiling, his arm slung around someone who looked exactly like her. But the date scrawled on the back said 1994. She stared at it, speechless. "This isn't possible." Marco's voice was low. "Your brother was involved in something before he vanished. Something that reached across both sides of the border. Cartel money funding U.S. experiments. They called it Project Reflection. He was a courier. He saw too much. Then he disappeared." Claire's hands shook as she turned the photo over again. "You're saying I'm what? Some kind of experiment?" "I'm saying," he said, "someone made you for a reason." She looked up at him, eyes glassy with disbelief. "No. My mother. She had me in Austin. I have a birth certificate. I have memories." "Memories can be built," he interrupted gently. "So can papers." Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to throw the photo into the rain, to make the world make sense again. But deep down, beneath the fear, something in her had always felt off. That shadow in her dreams. That inexplicable sense of déjà vu that followed her everywhere. She swallowed hard. "Then why would they send her, that woman, after me?" Marco met her gaze. "Maybe she wasn't sent to kill you. Maybe she was sent to warn you." Before Claire could answer, a faint buzz filled the air, headlights approaching fast. 2 black SUVs, no license plates, tires spraying water. Marco cursed. "Get down." They dove behind a rusted fuel pump as bullets tore through the fog. Marco fired back, glass shattering, engines roaring. Claire's heart pounded in her throat. Her hands clamped over her ears as the world exploded around her. "Move!" he shouted, pulling her toward the rear of the station. They slipped through a broken fence, sprinting toward an old drainage tunnel that disappeared beneath the highway. The gunfire faded as they ran, echoes bouncing off the concrete walls. They collapsed inside the tunnel, both gasping, soaked, trembling. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Claire turned to him, her face streaked with rain and dirt. "You knew they'd come." "I hoped they wouldn't," he said. "But I made enemies in every direction. And now they think you're the key to all of it." Her voice broke. "Why me?" He hesitated, and that hesitation told her everything. "Marco," she whispered, "what are you telling me?" His eyes met hers, full of guilt. "Because your brother didn't just work for them. He worked for me." The words hit like a blade. Claire stepped back, shaking her head. "No, you're lying. He was my inside man," Marco said, voice raw. "He wanted out. He said he was done smuggling for the cartel, done running. But before he disappeared, he stole something from me. A drive with every name, every deal, every secret I ever buried." Claire stared at him, realization dawning. "And you thought I had it." His silence was answer enough. She took another step back, the chain around her neck cold against her skin. "You used me." "No," he said quickly. "Not at first. But after that night at the bar, after seeing her, I realized something bigger was happening. I'm trying to protect you now, Claire. You have to believe that." She wanted to, but her trust was unraveling fast. "Why should I?" she said. "You're the reason he's dead." His face twisted, not in anger, but in pain. "You think I don't carry that? Every day. Liam was my friend. He saved my life once. I owed him everything." Tears blurred her vision. "Then why didn't you save him?" Marco's voice broke like glass. "Because by the time I found him, he was already gone." The storm howled through the tunnel, drowning the sound of her sobs. They stood in the dark, both shaking, both broken in different ways. Finally, Marco reached into his jacket, pulling out a small flash drive wrapped in a blood-stained handkerchief. "He left this," he said quietly, "in my car the night he disappeared." Claire's eyes widened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know what was on it, or who it would destroy." She stared at the drive as thunder rolled overhead. Then she took it from his hand, her fingers brushing his. "We find the truth," she said softly, "no matter what it costs." He nodded, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the fragile beginning of something like it. Outside, lightning struck again, lighting the desert like a battlefield. Neither of them saw the figure standing at the edge of the road, watching through the rain. The woman, the mirror, her face illuminated by the flash. In her hand, she held a phone. A voice on the other end spoke calmly. "Is she ready?" The woman hesitated, eyes on Claire through the storm. "Not yet," she whispered. "She still thinks she's real." And then she vanished into the dark. The storm moved east by morning, leaving behind a bruised sky and the scent of wet asphalt. The city of El Paso shimmered in the distance, half buried in fog. Claire sat in the passenger seat of Marco's old black Chevy, the flash drive clutched in her hand, her heart a tight knot of fury and fear. They hadn't spoken since leaving the tunnel. The silence between them was heavy, almost suffocating. Every time she looked at him, she saw her brother's face, and the weight of everything Marco hadn't told her. When they reached the outskirts, Marco pulled off onto a dirt road leading toward the abandoned Air Force relay station near the hills. The building had been gutted long ago, no lights, no guards, just wind whispering through broken windows. "This is where he disappeared," Marco said quietly. Claire looked at him. "Liam." He nodded. This was the last place anyone saw him alive. She stepped out of the truck, boots crunching on gravel. The morning light was pale, colorless. She could almost feel her brother in the air. That same pull she'd felt in dreams for months, like he was still trying to tell her something. Inside the relay station, dust hung thick in the air, catching the weak light like ash. Old computers, torn wires, graffiti on the walls, and a single metal table in the center of the room. On it sat a rusted laptop. Marco crossed to it, brushing off the dust. This should still run, he said, plugging in the flash drive. The screen flickered to life. A folder appeared, reflection_logs. Claire stepped closer, pulse pounding. Open it. Marco hesitated, then clicked. Hundreds of files filled the screen. Photographs, medical scans, psychological profiles. One name repeated over and over. Subject 07 CD. Claire's stomach turned cold. That's me. She scrolled, trembling, until a file opened automatically. A video clip. A sterile white lab. A man in a lab coat speaking into a recorder. Project Reflection, Day 312. Subject 07 shows complete genetic stabilization. Neural imprint successfully transferred. From primary host, designation LD. Claire's voice broke. LD Liam Donovan. The scientist continued. Replication protocol confirmed. Subject 07 shares identical DNA to the donor sibling. Emotional triggers match imprint parameters. Memory reconstruction stable. Her breath caught. No. Marco's voice was barely audible. They used him to build you. She stumbled back, shaking her head. That can't be true, my mother. Another file autoplayed. A video feed of a hospital room. A woman in her 20s, her mother, sat holding a baby. But the timestamp on the screen said May 4th, 1994, the same year as the photo of Liam and the other Claire. Marco's jaw clenched. They planted you with her. She never knew. Tears filled Claire's eyes, hot and disbelieving. So I'm not real. He stepped closer, voice low. You're real to me. She turned on him, shaking. You don't get to say that. You lied about my brother. You hid this. You. Before she could finish, a distant sound cut through the air. Tires on gravel. Marco froze. They found us. The walls trembled as 3 SUVs skidded to a stop outside. Men in tactical gear poured out, black rifles glinting under the gray sky. Marco grabbed her wrist. Run! They sprinted through the back hall as gunfire tore through the building. Glass exploding, metal screeching. Claire ducked, heart hammering. Marco fired back, shouting orders to cover her. But they were surrounded. He pushed her toward a narrow stairwell leading down into the maintenance tunnels. Go. I'll hold them off. No, she shouted. Not without you. He looked at her, something raw and desperate in his eyes. You're the only thing left of him, Claire. You have to live. She shook her head, tears spilling. And what are you supposed to do? Die for your guilt? He smiled faintly. Maybe that's all I've been doing. Before she could stop him, he stepped out from behind cover, gun blazing. She screamed his name as bullets lit the air. She ran. Down the stairwell, into darkness. The sound of gunfire faded behind her until all she could hear was the echo of her heartbeat and the ghost of his voice. The tunnel opened into a lower chamber, dim light flickering from emergency bulbs. The hum of generators. A faint rhythmic beeping. Claire froze. In the center of the room stood a glass containment tank, half filled with clear fluid. Inside it, suspended, unmoving, was herself. Her double. Her twin. Her mirror. The same scar. The same face. Eyes closed as if asleep. Claire stumbled forward, chest tightening, unable to breathe. What is this? She whispered. A voice echoed from the shadows. It's what you were meant to become. The woman stepped into the light, the mirror. No raincoat this time. Just black tactical clothes, and the expression of someone who'd seen too much. Claire's voice trembled. What are you? The woman smiled sadly. I'm the first attempt. The one that failed. Claire's eyes widened. You're subject 06. She nodded. They made me from the same pattern, but I couldn't hold the imprint. Liam tried to destroy the project. He freed me. Then they killed him, because he wouldn't give them the final sequence. Claire's throat ached. And me. You're the sequence, the mirror said. The perfect copy. His last code before he died. You're not his sister anymore, Claire. You're his legacy. Footsteps echoed behind them. Boots, shouts, gunfire. Marco burst through the door. Blood on his shoulder, fury in his eyes. Claire, move. The mirror raised her gun. Marco did the same. Don't, Claire cried. She knows the truth. She's using you. Marco shouted back. She wants to finish what they started. No. The mirror's voice cracked. I want to end it. A shot rang out. Then another. Silence. Claire opened her eyes. Both of them were down. Marco staggered, clutching his side. The mirror dropped her gun, blood spreading across her chest. Claire ran to her, tears streaming. No, no, stay with me. The woman's hand trembled as she reached up, touching Claire's face. You have to end it. Destroy the data. Don't let them make another. Her breath hitched, then stopped. Claire held her, shaking, as alarms began to wail through the building. Red lights flashed. The containment tank hissed open. Marco fell to his knees nearby, coughing blood. Claire, the drive. She looked at him, at the man who'd lied, fought, and bled for her, and something inside her cracked open completely. She crawled to the laptop, inserted the flash drive, and selected delete all files. The screen flashed. Are you sure? She pressed yes. The lights flickered. The data began to wipe, one file at a time. Subject 07. Subject 06. Project Reflection. When she turned back, Marco was slumped against the wall, pale, eyes dimming. Hey, she whispered, crawling to him. Stay with me. We can make it out. He smiled faintly, blood at the corner of his lips. You look just like him when you're angry. Don't. His hand found hers, weak but warm. You're real, Claire. No matter what they made you from. You're real. And then his hand went still. Claire pressed her forehead to his, shaking with silent sobs as the building's sirens screamed around them. The tank shattered behind her, glass and fluid exploding across the floor. The clone inside, her reflection, was gone. In its place stood a shadow, slipping through the red haze, vanishing into the smoke. Claire turned, but it was too late. Somewhere in the chaos, her mirror had awakened, and it was free. The relay station burned for hours. Fire crawled up the desert sky, swallowing the storm clouds in red. Helicopters roared overhead, their searchlights sweeping across the sand. But the girl they were looking for was already gone, walking barefoot down the highway, with a bag of ash in one hand and her brother's chain around her neck. Claire Donovan, or whatever she truly was, didn't look back. The wind was cold, dry, smelling of smoke and gunpowder. Every step away from that place felt like stepping out of a dream she no longer believed in. By dawn, she reached a small gas station just outside Alamogordo. The fluorescent lights hummed. A tired attendant behind the counter glanced up at her, said nothing. She bought a map, a bottle of water, and stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. Same eyes, same scar, same face. But behind those eyes, something new had started to form. Not memory, not fear, but choice. 3 days later, she sat in the corner booth of a diner near Roswell, nursing a cup of black coffee. Her hair was darker now, chopped to her shoulders, her face hidden under a baseball cap. On the table lay a small burner phone and the flash drive Marco had died protecting, its metal casing charred, the data long gone. She turned it over in her hand like a worry stone. Every night since the explosion, she'd dreamed of two faces, her brother's smile and the mirror's dying eyes. Both haunted her. Both belonged to her, in some way she couldn't understand. She didn't notice the man until he slid into the seat across from her. A stranger, mid-40s, clean-cut, wearing a pressed gray suit that didn't belong in this dusty corner of New Mexico. Claire Donovan, he said, his tone polite, professional. Or should I say Subject 7? Her grip on the cup tightened. You've got the wrong person. He smiled faintly. If that were true, we wouldn't be having this conversation. She scanned the diner. 2 truckers by the window, a waitress refilling coffee. No exits that weren't watched. Who are you? My name doesn't matter, he said. But the people I work for, they built you. They've been searching since the fire. You were never meant to survive. Her voice hardened. Then why am I here? Because you're proof the experiment succeeded. He leaned closer. And because we can make you whole again. Claire's chest tightened. You think I want to be what you made me. You don't understand, he said softly. The other one, the prototype, she wasn't the only copy. You're not the last, Claire. There are others. Dozens. Sleeping, waiting. Her stomach dropped. Where? He smiled, slow and deliberate. That depends on whether you help us find them. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt, the hum of the diner fading into nothing. Her mind flashed with images she didn't remember living. White rooms, wires in her skin, voices whispering, "Wake up." She stood suddenly, knocking the coffee cup to the floor. "Stay away from me." He didn't move. "You can run, but they'll find you again. It's only a matter of time." She walked out into the sunlight, her breath sharp and fast, her heart breaking against her ribs. The air smelled like dust and exhaust. Somewhere behind her, the man called her name, but she didn't look back. She drove until nightfall, following the map east through the desert until the stars disappeared behind clouds again. She stopped on the side of an empty highway, got out, and stood under the endless dark. The flash drive felt heavy in her pocket. She pulled it out, stared at it for a long time. That small, ruined piece of metal that had cost so many lives. And then she threw it into the desert. The wind carried the sound away. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was running from something. She was running toward something, though she didn't know what. She got back into the car and started driving again. An hour later, her headlights caught movement ahead. A lone figure walking along the road, barefoot, drenched in rain. Claire slowed, heart pounding. It was a woman, and when the figure turned toward the light, Claire's breath stopped. The face looking back was hers. Not the mirror. Not the one from the tank. Someone else, younger, thinner, frightened. The girl raised a trembling hand to shield her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Don't leave me." Claire killed the engine. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. She stepped out into the rain, the wind whipping her hair against her face. The girl stumbled closer. Up close. She could see it. The same scar, the same eyes, the same confusion she'd seen in her own reflection days ago. "How many of us are there?" Claire whispered. The girl's lips trembled. "They said I was next." Claire reached out slowly, her hand brushing the girl's. Her fingers were ice cold. Somewhere behind them, thunder rumbled again, low, distant, alive. She took the girl's face in her hands, gently, firmly. "Then we stop it," she said. "All of it. No more lies. No more ghosts." The girl nodded, tears mixing with rain. And as lightning split the horizon, the two of them stood there, identical, broken, reborn in the same storm, the first and second of many to come. For the first time in her short, borrowed life, Claire felt something that wasn't programmed. Hope. Miles away, in a government basement humming with machines, a red warning light blinked on a sealed monitor. Project Reflection, status, reinitializing. A digital camera feed came to life. Inside a white room, a third woman, still sleeping, opened her eyes. And she, too, had Claire's face.